All right. Hello, ABL and fans of the ABL. I am back, first time in a while. I've got Cardinal Jeff with me. I've got the swag man, Mr. Lenny, with me, the Reds owner. We're going to talk a little week one, scoring matchup one, however you want to say it, week and a half one. We're just going to touch on some general ABL stuff. I wanted to kind of shake up how I did these pods instead of just talking about who beat who the worst or who scored the most hitting and pitching points. I thought it would be more fun to kind of do them like this and just touch on some whatever these guys and I kind of feel like talking about. But before we get into that, I want to squash some. I don't even want to say like rumors or anything, but I've had a couple of guys mention things to me really ever since Oriole Steven started his prospect pod about like, am I upset about that? Do I feel like Steven is stepping on my toes by starting up another pod? Am I upset? I know in the chat, I kind of made the NWO posts and the Monday night, pod wars posts and stuff, but I just want to clarify that is all in good fun. I think it's really neat that there's that we have multiple guys that do minor league rankings, that we've got a guy that takes his own time and does power rankings. That I just want to make it clear that I do not feel like I have some sort of special right to be the guy that does the podcast or anything. Like I maybe for a second I was a little in private to a couple people. I may have displayed some annoyance that, Steve, if you happen to watch this, that you didn't tap me on the shoulder and give me a heads up, hey, I'm going to start a pod. But really, the more I thought about that, the more entitled and kind of selfish that came off, that, I should have got a heads up. But there's really there's no beef, there's no animus, there's no nothing between Steve and I, except for clearly a love of what we think is a really great baseball league. So just to get that out of the way, I think most of you guys know me well enough that my posts on the Discord are pretty tongue-in-cheek most of the time, and you can tell when they're not. So if there was any confusion or anything, Steve and I are good, no war. But if there was, I would try to win. So, but there's not. So with that out of the way, Lenny, how you doing, brother? How was your week one? How's your scoring match one treating you so far?
Oh, beautiful. 0-3, just like I drew it up.
What a silly question, right? Yeah.
We're positioned everybody just to run the table from here on out. It's kind of what I'm looking for doing. But
it can only go up when you start 0-3, right? Because I'm kind of hoping the same thing myself. So
it is, hoping for injuries, not to the guys, but to their players.
Yeah, that's fine. You never want to root for an injury, but it wouldn't kill me to see somebody go down for somebody else. Yeah, Jeff. So it's maybe a bit of a coincidence because I asked both you guys to do this obviously before the week was done. I didn't know that the NL Central was going to look the way that it does after week one. But Jeff, you have to be pretty pleased with how scoring matchup one went. But like in the bigger picture, are you surprised at the way the NL Central looks? I mean, it's just 1 week or whatever, but it's an interesting snapshot already.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all, and I do think Lenny's going to be in the thick of things once this gets rolling as well. I feel pretty lucky to come out 3-0 on the first week because I think I played Jake and the Braves and David in Oakland, and those are two really good teams, and they're going to be really good teams all year. And I think they both kind of had a down week. Had some of their players underperform, and I had a couple of my guys, mainly Springs and Steele, just go nuts that scored like half my points. Mm-hmm. So I feel pretty fortunate to come out there. I feel like this league, like there's no doubt that there's going to be more parity like we haven't seen all throughout ABL this year.
Maybe a little surprising to see the Cubs in there at 3-0. I don't. It sounds like I'm shitting on Frank or the Cubs, but if before the week started, if you would have told me that there's going to be, most of the division is going to go undefeated, there's going to be one team that starts 0-3, my money probably would have been on the Cubs going 0-3. And I don't mean that as a slight, but just knowing the division the way that I do, I guess I was a little surprised to see the Reds being on the bottom. The Red, Lenny, you took the gamble on acquiring 2/3 of that White Sox outfield, and of course,
Yep.
Eloy is being Eloy already. This early in the year, hitting the DL, so that's going to be rough to overcome. Hopefully, it's not too bad. Lou Bob's looking good, but yeah, you and I kind of just ran into the same issue of not enough starts, not enough innings,
Yep.
and the bats just couldn't carry. But I really don't think that this snapshot is a thing to come for the Reds. I agree with Jeff that what we have said before about the Central probably being the toughest division, one of the toughest divisions in the league, that's going to hold true start to finish, I think. One thing I wanted to I don't even know what that was. One thing I wanted to touch on, and it's funny that I did, because right before we started this, there were a couple of trades, but I did kind of want to talk about, I guess, relative to the rest of the ABL, like that we've experienced, it seems like the trading has really slowed down. Now, I doubt there's like one reason for that, but like, what are your guys' views on the slowdown in trading, and maybe is this something that we can expect going forward as more prospects are called up and settle into starting spots at cheap prices, or as guys kind of smarten up to how this league is running and how it's going to run going forward, and maybe keeping their cheaper guys? Is it a combination? Like, where are you guys at on that?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll pick up for sure. It'll take a few weeks, but teams that get off to a real bad start and start to get frustrated, there will be teams that dump. It's going to happen, and once that happens, it tends to kind of snowball. People see the prospects on the move, and they want a piece of that too. And I think that kind of this league was crazy active, right? Like before the auction,
Yeah.
And it slowed down. Like during the auction, of course, Harry had his sell off, and there was a ton of players on the move during that. And then Sam, right after the auction, made a lot of moves as well. And kind of those two combined really kind of dominated the trade market in the headlines for a little bit. And I think maybe they caused enough waves to where it's going to take a little bit for the water to settle. But I think the ABL, as its trade crazy reputation, will be back in full force soon.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is, I guess you would say, Sam as well as Tony are two of the most heavy traders. They haven't been as active as normal. For them, it's a down year, down half season. There are various reasons why. I do know they've been active recently, and they can pick up. Gary's also very active when he comes through. I think by week 6, he's going to be more active than the other two. I could be active later. I may not. I usually trade a lot as well. For me, though, I had set my team up, so I actually told myself I wasn't going to trade for the entire season. I kind of didn't follow that through all the way, but I wanted to see if I could do it. When there's some other people doing the same thing, kind of wait until halfway through the season, see where they're going to go. Maybe not a dump, but kind of positioning for next year. So I do think by week 6 or 7, we should see a lot more pickup of trading more than we have in the early goings of the league.
I think it will too. It just feels like these last few weeks, the start of year 3 here has felt just oddly slower than. And maybe that's not even true. I think it is. I haven't looked at the number of trades, but I feel like it is. And I don't know if that's, because Tony is taking Lent, or took Lent off for, the majority of it, or when it wasn't around on the boards as much. And, the Marlins are a big driving force, for a lot of trades in the league. And he did make one right before we went live. So, maybe maybe Tony's back. I know that losing Duval was very frustrating for him, both from the point production standpoint and a potential trade piece standpoint. I had kind of hit him up a little bit, but I don't think I had pieces to get it done, but I had, just to see what he wanted. This guy that plays all three spots was hitting the shit out of the ball, but I don't think I was the only one hitting him up. And then of course, we know what happened with that. So probably not going to be moving anytime soon unless he wants to sell lower than he probably wants to, which who knows, but, and along kind of like hand in hand with the lack of trade action, is it me or does the wire seem extra lousy this year, even with fewer roster spots? It just seems so much worse. I know I'm not the only, whoever it was in the chat said the other day, like I go to look and it's bullpen catchers and kind of crappy relievers. Like,
right.
Do you see that being? I mean, I don't know how that's going to get much better. Is that just something we're all going to have to get used to?
I think so. Yeah.
As an EC, right? We the big goal of that rule change to change your flex spots from 4 to 2 was to add 60 extra people to the wire, and I don't know who those 60 people are. It's like,
yeah, what did we do?
The top 60 people on the wire are absolutely terrible. So,
yeah,
I wonder if it's possible that the number of injuries or something, it's like there's a huge amount of injuries right now. I have teams with 6-7 guys on the IL, like across all these leagues, and everyone else does too. So it's kind of like, I wonder if the injury total, that all those injured folks like don't really have good replacements. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's part of my issue. Is I came into the year with a ton of flexibility in like my guys' positional flexibility, but I did not have depth. And already, it's Lux went down, Ashby and Musgrove, now Meta. Like I have guys to slot in there, but then those guys create holes somewhere else because all I really worried about was the flexibility instead of the depth. And I'm one of the idiots that have been on these pods 100 times touting depth and looking at all these teams and look how good the depth is. And then I didn't listen to myself and spent the money on Jose Abreu instead. And that's biting me in the ass already. So
you have to think that hopefully all these hurt guys are going to be coming back soon, right? And that should put more guys on the wire, should ramp up the trade market. There are a lot of teams that put kind of bunch of folks right at the start of the season that are going to be ready to come off the IL even this week, like the new bars and people like that kind of got thrown in the IL right away. As those guys start to come back, teams are going to have roster crunches, and we will see more players on the wire. We will see more trades.
I do. I think that's a great point you made, Jeff. Is that for sure? They've picked them up, they've had them, or they've kept them, and now when they bring them up out of the IR, they have to put them somewhere. They have to drop somebody. Chances are they're not going to drop the IR they just picked up or had on their roster to begin with. So, and then it will be viable, much better than what it is now. I mean, still going through some of the wire though. Some of the good players though are black flagged, so we can't pick them up.
Number one guy on the wire right now. Reliever for the Orioles, Danny Colombe, at 16.83 points. Now, to a team like mine, that sounds pretty good. But when you look relievers, it's all. Do I have? No, it's on all. Yeah, it's all.
Yes,
the whole first page is all relief pitchers.
Yeah. I think teams were carrying extra relievers with those extra flex spots last year. That was a common thing that teams did. So some of these guys would have been rostered with last year's roster rules.
Well, that's right. I think it was Cal that said that. It's a bunch of catchers. It's a bunch of loser catchers. You get to Matt Beatty, who's no longer up in the bigs. He only managed 2 at bats. So, man, it's a barren wasteland on the wire this year.
I'm rostering 3 catchers on my team, and they're all terrible.
I traded for my catcher, so I said, you know what, I'm going with Stevenson, and I'm not even going to carry a backup. Who needs a backup when you're touting a guy as #1 catcher for the last 2 years? But man, it's just like, oh, you know what, I did. I picked up Connor Wong. I take that back. I did pick up Connor Wong the other day with the Red Sox second or third guy.
31, not bad.
Put them together, and you might have a league average catcher if you're lucky. I will say, though, Lenny, that deal, I mean, C1 has been great. Ashcraft is working out for you. That might be like the rare trade that really works out for, obviously it's not helping us in the standings right now, but the guys that we traded each other for both looking quite good. Ashcraft having another good game tonight, or at least he was when I started this thing.
Yeah, he was. He let I think Riley scored, and they were down 1-0. But I also have his counterpart Elder, who I think actually will outshine Ashcraft as the season goes for Atlanta.
He's been great tonight too. Yeah. 2-start week for Elder.
Yeah, I think I got it.
Man, Ashcraft, really nice to see the strikeouts too. He seems to be keeping the increased strikeout stuff from spring training. If I would have known he was going to start throwing a splitter, I don't know. I really like Stevenson, but man, I don't know if I would have dealt him had I known that. But how can you know?
I mean, he had a chance to get C1 now. That doesn't come around very often.
Great catcher at a nice price in a 30-teamer. I don't regret the move, but I am glad to, Ashcraft was a pop-up guy for me, a spec I got off the wire a while ago. So of course I still kind of, root for him in the back of my mind. I still like to see him do well. So, and I like to, make deals with guys where I say I hope it works out for both of us. But this one,
it's really working out for Josh.
Might actually,
Josh, so kind of had to give up on Ashcraft in this league.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't think that was ever going to happen, did you?
No, I didn't. I kind of forgot it did already, or else I wouldn't have been saying that. So, but still, I mean, he does look good.
No, he does.
What did you guys have? I don't want to run down my entire list here, like in the first 20 minutes.
Should we talk about
what do you guys want to talk about?
The $2 million elephant in the room, which is Duke's lineup, and how he scored 100 points more than anybody else?
Yeah, let's go to these standings here. Go back to that.
So what did he score in normal weeks? Say Monday through Sunday. Do we have that, or can we figure that out real quick?
Let's see. By periods,
I do think he blasted out. Not that, and other teams did as well, but that extra Thursday through Sunday kind of jump-started a lot of the team, the league.
Looks like all I can do is the full. I mean, if I can do others, it's. Wait, no, that doesn't even seem right, does it? Yeah, we had 2.
Mm-hmm.
No. 10th to the 16th is right now. So this is saying we
maybe.
Yeah, you almost had to do it by day, but you still have to add them up. That's kind of
There's still more. I mean, Jake Diamondback said Jake had an incredible week, and Duke still beat him by 140.
Without a doubt.
The D-backs were interesting because they had a great week, and he did it with his hitting and pitching almost exactly split in half. There were some other teams. I know we mentioned the Nats in the Discord earlier. The Nats, I think, were pretty much all bats. They had a great hitting week. And then there were some other teams, I think the Angels and somebody else that did it predominantly with arms. But the D-backs were like almost 50-50 hitting and pitching. So something a little worrisome for my NL West brethren to look for. I know some of us had been on the pods previously. We had said the D-backs could look scary. I think that was more like halfway through last year when he had some injured guys coming back, like Chris Sale and some other pitcher. Didn't quite go on the run that maybe we expected, but man, he is starting this year now looking like that team that we thought he could look like.
He's just got that high end. He's got some studs on that team, and when they have a big week, he's gonna have a big week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jake very quietly Yeah, he's not on the Discord a lot. Doesn't make a lot of splashy deals or anything, but man, he's quietly built himself a very nice squad. The Pirates. Don't need to look at the. Let's see. How did I do that? Results? No. Season stats, maybe. There we go. So yeah, Duke scored 5.5 points per game and got 108 games played, which was not the tops. The Brewers actually topped that out with 130. So, Duke really kind of middle of the pack on games played, but took full advantage of that with 5.5 points. I mean, well over half a point better than the number 2 Orioles, who, not to take any. We don't want to run down every single team here because we want to get this thing under an hour, but very impressive performances.
Who do you feel is your most surprising team? I guess in a positive way, not necessarily in negative.
And I think the Nats. I think it would be be silly not to say the Nats. Looking at how the Nats have been the first 2 years, they're sitting in the bottom of arguably the worst division in somebody's got to be the worst. But yeah, the Nats have not. They made a lot of moves and stuff, but the team just wasn't gelling. It seemed like ever, and then out of nowhere, week 1, here come the Nats hitting the shit out of the ball, finishing very well, kind of overall. And I think it would be disingenuous to say anybody but the Nats, really, at least for me.
No, that's who I was going with as well.
Yeah.
You, Jeff? Same or?
It's absolutely the same. Yeah, the Nats have been they had a very impressive week, and they did get some outlier performances. We'll get into that here in a little bit. Like I don't expect Patrick Wisdom to continue to be one of the top hitters in the league and a few other guys, but it's impressive because last year they won very few games, right? And
correct.
That quick turnaround always catches your eye, and it kind of. That's one of the beautiful things about this league, right? We saw Mark do it, where he was in the finals and a hair away from winning it all last year after winning one game the first year.
Mm-hmm.
And here are the Nats right here at the top of the standings, and it's really about how you can kind of make sure you have a lot of money in the auction and spend it wisely and make some good trades, and you can be right there.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I feel like there's a chance that the Nats might not have had 10 combined wins in the first 2 years, and are now already out of the gate, just looking like a totally different team. So yeah, that's very exciting, very surprising. I think the Astros sitting on top of the AL West is a little bit of a strike. It's week 1, so that's not to say like, the A's are going to suck. But the Astros and the Angels both kind of being up there with the A's is nice to see. The D-backs, again, I wouldn't call it a surprise necessarily because, like I said, a lot of us had talked about what this team could look like, but it's nice to see them finally doing it, if only for one matchup. But that was nice. And then the NL Central, just generally everybody going 3-0, and then the poor Reds. I mean, that's just really funky to look at when you look at the standings and kind of see that. It's a little weird, but not terribly surprising, I guess. What's yours, Lane? What would you, outside the Nats, what would have been your biggest surprise?
In a positive way, I'd say
could be negative.
The Orioles, something about the Orioles. I like what Steve was doing. Some of it was a little wonky to me, and that's fine. I like wonky. It's kind of neat. I like to see how things work out. But so far, I like what they have done. Would I have thought they would have been over the Blue Jays? Blue Jays have one of the best pitching staffs I've seen in a while put together. And I should know something about pitching staffs being put together, right? So, but I don't know. That's surprising to me in a good way. I like to see the teams that have struggled in the past or were picked up from a struggling team when Randy originally had the Orioles and watch the guys turn them around. I think that's kind of a great thing about this league is that new blood comes in, make it their own, and then they start rising. and so it's a positive surprise to me. And I like that. I hope it keeps going for them.
Yeah. Well, the O's did have a nice first week with big points out of guys like Trevor Williams, Eli Morgan scoring him almost 30 out of the pen. The Padres, my dad was very upset that Steven got Hunter Gaddis from him. I think it was in a FAB run. Yeah. Sonny Gray was, of course, phenomenal in his last start, 43 points in 2 starts. Yeah, Steven had a hell of a – and that's with some of the bats, like Tyler O'Neill and Jazz hasn't really been Jazz yet. Had 2 homers, 2 steals. I guess maybe he kind of has, but I feel like these bats still have some room to improve. So, yeah, the O's could be
Giolito gave him nothing. I'd be surprised SB1.
Yeah, geez, 12 points out of Giolito in 2 starts. Yeah, so he could have been quite a bit better. Only 4 out of Alex Wood. So got himself a nice cheap Justin Lawrence, who could be a leverage guy in Colorado, at least maybe a holds guy. He throws like 100 miles an hour with a funky kind of delivery. He walks a lot of guys, but that Colorado bullpen, and anybody could be leverage in that bullpen.
I think Alvarado is the most likely guy to end up the closer in Philly too. So
he's disgusting. Yeah, 4 innings, 11 strikeouts. Wow. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, kind of. The AL East was the pod that I was going to have Blue Jay Gary on for that, and then my work has been kind of wacky lately. The clients have not been behaving themselves the way they should, so my free time has been a little clipped, and I didn't get to do the AL East. We didn't get to do anybody in the NL, but I think that AL East was going to be a fun one to talk about just because of how close they kind of all seem. I mean, like you really could see anybody going for it in that division. But yeah, the O's looking good to start.
I was impressed.
Jeff, we want to bring up your thing here.
Yeah, we could talk about bring it up, and then that could be a springboard to some of these conversations.
Yeah, Jeff made a nice sheet here earlier today with some notes and some bits and pieces. Oh, what the hell? There we go.
The goal here was to kind of look and see who underperformed and who overperformed on teams, and look and see who's injured and coming back, and kind of get an idea if the week 1 performance from some of these teams was a little bit of an outlier, if we expect some regression, either positive or negative. When I say regression, I generally mean negative.
Right.
And this is just my own opinions. Like I looked at the players, if I see, like an Adam Duvall putting up 8 points a game, that's he's injured now, but that's an obvious sort of regression candidate. And I looked for guys like that. And so the columns here that you see, this is ranked from the total points scored top down to bottom, 1 to 30. And the key injuries are there in the column F, that your team has. I didn't list everybody that was injured, just the ones that kind of will affect your scoring going forward. And the players that in my opinion, seem to overperform. That doesn't mean they're not good players. Obviously, like you see here for the Pirates up top, Brian Reynolds and Drew Rasmussen are both great players. They're both tons of fun this year, but they both, put up scores like they're going to win the Cy Young and the MVP. And I don't think they will, right? They're good players. They're probably top 70 players or whatever, but
they're also $17 combined, the two of those.
It's that problem to have, man.
Most teams have some players that overperformed and some players that underperformed. Even when you look at Duke, he didn't get much from Manoah, ECAB, or Tovar. They gave him pretty much nothing, and he still scored that many more points than everybody else. So yeah, the teams that are listed in green here, my thought is that in the weeks ahead, you will probably see them score a little more than they scored in the first scoring period. The teams listed in red, I would expect them to score a little bit less. The teams in yellow, I think you're probably going to see about the same.
Okay.
And we can talk into why, and we don't have to necessarily. I'll send this out to everybody here in the Discord afterwards if you want to look through it. But yeah, I mean, Duke's at the top. I think he's the best team in the league by pretty far. When when you look through his lineup, he's got, ABL All-Stars in every single position, pretty much top 10 guys, top to bottom in every single position. And you combine that with the pitching staff, which is one of the best 2 or 3 in the league, it's going to be tough to beat him unless he has major injuries.
Even if he does, man, it feels like he feels like he's prepared for injuries. Even this guy has put together a dynasty machine, and all credit to Duke. I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, this is I've learned a lot about dynasty specifically from Duke. Like he's very good at his valuations, especially when it comes to younger guys and prospects. But man, he's got something I don't. I don't know what it is, but man, he's got it because he knows how to put together a monster.
Some of it is.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you're fine. Please jump in and interrupt me all you want. I mean, some of it is in this league. Duke's just kind of set up a machine that keeps rolling and keeps making trades with younger guys and keeps freeing up cash to buy superstars at the auction at the same time. And he's kind of got a machine that's going to be hard to derail. We need a bunch of these prospects not to hit really for us to have much of a chance. Like if Beatty and Tiedemann and those guys all hit, then he's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I think it's going to need injuries to derail himself more than it's going to be anybody to derail him, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Hate to say that, but that's the reality of the situation. This guy's so good. We just have to kind of hope.
It's not Duke injuring himself or Jeff or
no, some of these top teams are going to get
Frank
it's going to
happen.
Yeah.
It'll happen in the major leagues too, right? There are teams that'll get decimated with injuries. It happens to the White Sox last year. It happens to teams.
Yeah,
it does.
I gave Jake a red, which means I expect some slight regression. Really, because kind of everything hit in week 1. Like all of his guys performed really. Like I couldn't find anyone that I said was an underperformer on his entire team. So I don't expect that to continue week after week. And Jake doesn't have a ton of depth. He is susceptible to injuries for sure. He'll be rolling out people that play once a week if any of his main guys get injured. The Orioles were the 3rd highest scoring team. And just noting, we already kind of talked about him, but he did have the O'Neal Cruz injury really does hurt his squad, and he might be
rough.
He was really an ascending player, obviously. And that might cause him to regress a little bit, losing Cruz. The Nats I had as a regression candidate, just because if you look at all the overperforming players on there, Brandon Lowe, Michael Conforto, Patrick Wisdom, Garrett Mitchell, Mackenzie Gore, all of them had massive weeks. They're all good players, but I don't think they're all going to perform like they did this week.
For them to all click in a same matchup like that, you're only going to get so many of those.
Right.
And real quick, since we are on the Nats, Sam, thank you to Sam. He mentioned that the Nats won 7 in year 1 and 8 in year 2, so they did have 15 combined wins. I shorted them a little bit, but still doesn't I don't think make it any less impressive the week 1 that they had. But as we see here, it did take some guys all clicking at the same time that you might not be able to rely on doing that, but enjoy it while you can. It's still really nice when it works out good.
Brewers in a similar boat. I mean, I do think would not surprise me at all for the Brewers to finish ahead of me in the NL Central this year. They're a good team. He's done an incredible job putting those together. Zach's done a nice job. He's a good fantasy player, without a doubt. But Kyle Freeland and Michael Walker are not good pitchers. And they both put up massive point totals in the first week. So he'll regress a little bit, but he's got enough depth to where he's still going to be a top team. The Royals on here next. If you look at it, it's interesting because he had kind of some players that went nuts, like Rojas and Glaber that just were some of the top players in the league. All of his RPs scored massively too. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, his best players, Trey and Murphy and Kirby and Snell did not have a good week. So you expect that to even out over time. It's kind of fascinating to watch.
Was the Royals lost to the Pirates?
I'm not sure.
I wish I could remember without having to I have
I
to
can
look. I wonder.
I'll pull it up while you.
Yeah, who beat the Royals in week 1? I think it was Duke. So I mean, Brendan could easily be 3-0 here,
Right.
and yeah, like you said, he could easily have a lot more points than he does. So the Royals going 2-1. I know the Royals were one of the ones that when I did the AL Central, I said that they were maybe the most interesting team in the ABL. And if week 1 is any indication that he can put up these kind of points with having those guys, specifically struggling, and they did. They really all did.
And Bryce Harper.
Royals are dangerous.
Yeah,
Royals are dangerous.
There you
go. The Dodgers I have as an ascending team, actually, which I know Joe has been right up at the top of the league the last couple of years. Joe's a great player too. Burns and Bassett is both just totally shit the bed in the first week, right?
Yeah, especially Burns.
Yeah. And so for him to be one of the top 7 teams, in spite of having those 2 pitchers give him absolutely nothing, and also losing Altuve and Ray.
And no Altuve, no Altuve, no Ray. Yeah, it's kind of the same as the Royals. Like, look out for Joe.
Right. So Joe's going to have some big weeks, without a doubt. Got Cleveland Mark after them, and I have him as an ascending team too. I think Mark's one of the best 3 or 4 teams in the league, without a doubt. He was right there at the end last year. He's still got a really deep squad, top to bottom. Glasnow and Wright will be back soon. Well, Wright will be back tomorrow, right? That's what I heard.
I think tomorrow, yeah. Chances are, yeah.
And yeah, so I expect bigger things from Mark. I gave Josh, I'm sure he's not going to like it very much, but gave him a red color here. And yeah, his team was pretty lucky. There's a lot of overachievers there. I have your boy Ashcraft on that list. Pena had a massive week. Trent Grisham had a massive week. Olsen played like the best player in the entire league, mainly against the Cardinals. And Lane Thomas had a massive week as well. And all those guys are not going to continue to do what they did week 1. And Josh has some nice depth. He'll be okay. He'll still be a top team as well. It'll be fun to watch at AL West with Jake and Josh. And you got a rough draw there, Alan, trying to compete with those guys.
Yeah, and Joe. Yeah, you could throw Joe in there. I know where I'm at. Yeah.
For myself, I put myself yellow. I mentioned earlier I was really carried by Springs and Steele, and I know that they overperform. They're good pitchers, but they're not going to keep doing what they've been doing. But also my entire offense was pretty much crap last week. Christian Walker did nothing. Miranda did nothing. Wong got like 1 hit and 30 at-bats or something ridiculous. So I expect my team will probably even out a little bit. It was mainly pitching week 1.
Hey, go 3-0 with no Verlander, though. That's got to feel good.
Oh, that's a huge help. Heck yeah.
Yeah, Verlander will definitely help. Oakland's an interesting team, right? Go ahead.
The A's. Well, right after you in the list, you got the A's sitting at 1 and 2, which is kind of like. I said I was pleasantly surprised by the Astros and the Angels. Well, somebody's got to be on the other side. I don't know if they played each other, but seeing the A's start 1 and 2 when, geez, if we remember back to the AL West preview with Tony, he was he's in love with the A's. Saw them as I think he said world title contender, or pick the A's to win the title. Not that a week means anything, but just to see the A's start 1 and 2 just seems, I don't know, a little off. And there's not a ton of, the underperforming names on the A's are not anybody that you would look at and say you can guarantee that they're going to bat. I like Wisniewski like you do, Jeff, but I'm not a Michaelis fan. I think he's smoke and mirrors. And you're clearly not a Josh Bell fan. So.
Yeah.
But man, Chappie, he does have the hottest bat in baseball going for him.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they lost to the Cardinals and the D-backs.
So lost to 2 pretty good teams. I mean, if you're going to take 2 losses, those are not fluke losses. Those are tough, tough losses to take. But yeah, it's kind of funky to see them start 1 and 2. I don't know.
I only beat them by 5 points too. It was very close. So. Yeah, David's a really good manager, without a doubt. Like he's a tough guy to have in the league because he makes smart moves and smart trades, and he's really good at building a minor league too.
Oh yeah, he's got one of the top 8 minor leagues.
Yeah, I know. Speaking of which, Lenny, you ever gonna release your minor league rankings? We're waiting on that one. I know you kind of.
I will. Work's been kind of keeping me busy more than I thought, but hopefully shortly I'll be able to get some time.
That was awesome
to present it. Yeah.
Right on. New York Yankees. I had them as red. Just had a couple over. Rosarina was incredible this week. He's a big reason that Rays are 10-0 right now is because Randy's going nuts down there.
He is.
So he'll slide back a little bit. Pollock is not going to keep doing what he's doing either. So
he'll get hurt. Pollock will get hurt.
Yeah,
he always does.
He will. I mean, Yankees are a solid team. They'll be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play it on them.
Yeah, they'll be right there in that AL East fight.
Yeah,
part of what makes that AL East such an interesting division. And it seems like everybody is kind of just right there. It's going to be really interesting to see who is able to pull away as the season goes on in the AL East.
Right. Now the Braves are one of the teams that I beat too, and I only beat them by like 17 points. Looks like. So that was a close match also, and they're a good squad. I think that they're going to be right there in the NL East. Jake won it last year, right? I know it was kind of going back and forth between him and Adam, but I think Jake ended up taking it. And he had some underperformers big time in week 1. I got those guys on other teams, so I know it was frustrating to watch Massey and Correa and Meneses all were pretty terrible in the first week. Yeah. And he's got Joe Adele lurking. Did Adele homer?
Adele to be a thing. Yeah. Wait, he homered. I didn't see if he did today, but he had homered in 6 straight minor league games. Right? He's like tantalizing everybody with that. He's going to be getting to like Adalberto status pretty soon with the you can't buy into this guy anymore. But when he goes down to AAA, he's like he pulls a Kalanick almost. It goes down, crushes AAA, comes up and can't seem to hit major league pitching, which does that make the guy a quad A? Like, is that kind of the definition of the quad A guy? Like, he can have a week where he looks like a competent major league hitter, but they just can't seem to put it together. But he's clearly got the tools. He's still young.
Yeah. So I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, Christian Walker had that label as a quad A player.
Right.
And it took him a little while. Of course, he had to get settled in at Arizona. And he's been, he put it together. So hopefully Dale can as well next year or later on this year.
It'd be fun if he could be half of what, we can imagine a team of Shohei and Trout and like a semi reaching his potential Joe Adele.
Yeah.
It seems really disappointing that we as baseball fans, just keep kind of getting cheated out of that. But we've also are kind of jaded on prospects coming up and being really good right away. It's kind of like we're all old enough to remember when that really was the exception. A guy coming up and being really good right away was not what was happening. These guys bounced around all the time and then finally came up and maybe settled in and started producing. But now it just seems like we expect these guys to come up and be, all-stars or Michael Harris, that we expect these guys to be Michael Harris. And we didn't expect Michael Harris to be Michael Harris. He wasn't a super top prospect, but these top guys, that's what we expect out of them. And when they don't do it, it's really disappointing. But Adele's been a little bit more than just not Michael Harris. I mean, he strikes out like 50% of the time or whatever.
Even Wander, who was right there with it was him and Adele, right? Who were number 1, 2 forever. And Wander really took. I mean, he looks like he might be breaking out this year, right? He's been crushing here for the first week. You're kidding yourself in fantasy if you don't think Wander's been a little bit of a disappointment the first couple of years, considering the hype that was behind him.
Oh, huge hype. Yeah.
I had Cal next, and I think we're all rooting for Cal. Cal's a fun guy, and he's got a fun team too. He's got a lot of great players. I don't know. What do we hear about Tim Anderson? He hurt his knee today, right? I don't know if he's going to miss time.
I have not heard the update. Yeah.
I haven't either.
because
I
Anderson's
like Timmy. I like Timmy a lot.
I do too, and he's been great to start the year. You know, last year Timmy was terrible, but he's looked awesome here to start the year, and that'll be huge for Cal if he doesn't miss any time, and he'll get more from Mookie than he's gotten already. So Cal's gonna be fine.
Yep.
I think probably the team that I think is gonna, increase the most on their performance is probably Gary's Blue Jays. You know, he made a bunch of massive trades,
Sure.
and his squad is good. You know, when you look at that team, he's solid top to bottom. He's got good hitting, good pitching. He's even got the phenomenon that is Chris Bubich now that everyone's talking about. So
spoke it to existence.
And he'll get Seiya Suzuki and Lance McCullers and Waino all coming back soon. So Scherzer's not. I guess Scherzer's a little better tonight, but he's not been himself. So Gary's going to score more points than he did, and he's going to win some games. I think Herman Marquez is walking off with a trainer. Not sure what's going on there.
I don't remember who it was. Somebody on Twitter today, it might have been Vlad Sedler, was suggesting Tyler O'Neill trades for the Cardinals, and one of them was Tyler O'Neill for Herman Marquez and some other Rocky, I think, prospect or something. But I didn't like it. As a Cardinal fan, I don't like that. Really. I mean, I know Marquez has been like one of those, if you get him out of Coors guys, like he'll reach that next gear or whatever, but
I saw someone suggesting Tyler O'Neill for Glasnow because their contracts are up at the same time. They're both kind of injury prone. The Rays don't necessarily need Glasnow, really. They're pitching so good.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. That'd be interesting.
I
still think Glasnow needs to be made into a reliever, but I don't know if that's going to happen or not. All right, sidetrack there. Sorry about that.
Pretty good. We keep going here so we can get this finished soon. We got the Astros. I said are probably going to ascend a bit. They had underperformances from Manny, Gallen, and Wheeler. You know, those are three studs. They're going to be better as the year goes along.
Sure.
Gallen was real bad. Gallen was real bad this first week.
Yeah, he was.
He was gross. Yeah.
The Twins, I had staying about the same. They got a good team, but that Hoskins injury really kills them and really hurts kind of the look of that roster. But they'll get a little more from Albies and Edmund and guys like that coming up. Tigers, the Tigers. I know we're expecting big things this year, right? They kind of turned the roster over, and but looking at the team, you know, he did get some major overperformers week one. Josh Lowe, Xander, and Pablo were all huge this week, and can't possibly maintain the point totals that they had. So, Phillies are down, but they're hurt right now. If you look at those pitching injuries, right? Fried, Rodon, and Ranger Suarez, and Schwarber actually had a disappointing week too. So Adam's squad, once he gets those three pitchers healthy, is going to be right there with Jake in the NL East. I don't know which team.
Right there with Jake and the Nats.
Yeah, the Nats. You're right. I shouldn't have said the Nats. They're going to be right there too. For sure.
I didn't do Nostradamus, but I would have said that Outman would be the Rookie of the Year this year. That's my guy. I think he's a huge star in the making as long as he stays healthy.
The Dodgers' best hitter so far, honestly.
Yeah. I like Vargas too, though. In that same, I mean, he's still got rookie eligibility this year as well. But man, that guy can hit. I mean, he can walk. That's the thing with him. He could stand there and take a walk like nobody's business. Love to see that, and he's probably going to end up before long with second base eligibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
Got the Mets here staying about the same. I think they're going to be right here in kind of like the bottom of the middle of the pack here most of the year. They got a good team. I think it might take them another year or so to really build this team up. He was kind of handed a bucket of crap at the start of the year. Doing a nice job building it though. Corey Seager and Gene Segura were down a little bit this week. They'll help them out as time goes on. Your dad's
tonight,
your dad's team I have ascending, Alan. I think
good team.
Yeah, I think his studs were kind of down this week, right? Brian Hayes, Santander, and Darvish all were a little bit down the first week. So when those guys start acting like themselves, they'll score more points.
I don't know if a team could be sneaky good in our league, but I think it's the Padres. If I had to pick one, to me, they're sneaky good this year.
Yeah,
I was giving him a little bit of a needle the other day because this is a team that it's maybe a little bit overlooked. He picked up, I don't think they were both last year. Maybe one was year one and the other, but he picked up Lars Nootbaar off the wire. He also picked up Taylor Ward off the wire.
Yeah.
He would love to still have those guys right now, especially Ward. It's like you could go a couple different paths with the Padres. One, imagine if he didn't trade, both of those guys. Two, imagine if he had just waited a little bit and they kind of blossomed into what they turned into. He still traded them, but got a much better return. And I'm not telling him anything I haven't already told him, but it would be really interesting to go back in time a little bit and see how he would have handled those two guys differently, because both really good priced. I think Ward was $9 or whatever when he picked him up. But I like what he's doing. I like his team better than mine right now. But man, it could look even better if he had just had a little bit of patience with those two guys. The outfield would look pretty stacked right now. Yeah.
You almost have to not have the tinkering mind in this league sometimes. Just trust your gut. Sometimes it takes a year or two, but a lot of us tinker too much, I think.
Yeah, no doubt.
I can find a lot of moves I wish I hadn't made. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Cubby Frank, I had him as regressing. Mainly because he's been really lucky with injuries, one of the healthiest teams in the entire league. And he went 3-0, but had a pretty soft schedule. So the Mariners, I had ascending a bit. I think the pitching will be better than they were. Alex Bregman's been terrible so far too. He'll hit another level. The Rays, I had staying about the same. They've had some injury luck themselves. The Marlins I had regressing because Duvall was their best player by far, and he's hurt now, and that's really the main reason there. It's kind of
it's a dagger for them technically.
It is a dagger. Yeah, I mean I think Tony was going to trade well anyways.
Real quick on the Mariners, I loved the Gonsolin trade for the Mariners. That was a sneaky good acquisition. Didn't kind of in that era we were talking about where there wasn't a lot of action going on, and the action that did happen wasn't kind of getting the Discord waves going like it usually kind of would have. We were all probably doing other drafts and getting ready for other leagues and stuff, but that was a really shrewd get for Seth. I really like that for him. Controllable guy, good price, good pitcher. Yeah. I like that deal.
For sure. Lenny, I had you staying about the same, but I mean, it's kind of, I think Story, there's been whispers that Story is going to be back way sooner than everybody thought, right? So for the couple places, that'll be a big boost, and hopefully Eloy doesn't miss too much time.
Yeah, it's a good chance with him or Roberts, and either one could get injured again longer term. I mean, if either one gets over 400 at bats, I'm going to be super stoked. Hell, 350, I'll be happy. But
and torque is like the advanced metrics on torque. He's been hitting the crap out of the ball, so I expect him to. He's still not putting up the points or the results you'd expect based on his pedigree.
None of the Tigers are right now. None of them. Tigers are scuffling.
They need to reverse humidor in that stadium or something. Boston Red Sox, I had staying the same. I mean, I think that team really needs Cheerio, is what I wrote on here, to come up and be a thing.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah, Nelson Cruz has been on fire in the last few days, so that's a big boost for him. Sam got some nice performances from some weird places, right? With Brian Anderson, Alex
Anderson, and Alex Call, yeah.
I think Sam's kind of taking a step back this year and trying to build for the future, I think. So, but he's getting a lot of his guys kind of a lot of randoms on his bench. They're starting to get called up and getting some playing time. So that'll help him put up some points. And then
Alex
I had
Call is a
you.
little interesting. He's got. I lost Duval in a 20-team roto that I did like a couple days before the season started. I won in one more league. I just lost Duval. He, of course, has been crushing it. Alex Call is the guy that I have a fat bid in on right now. One, because it's a 20-team league, it's really thin, but he's got some interesting. He looks like he could maybe be something. He's not going to be great, but he could be an everyday guy in that lineup.
Agree. Alan, had you ascending a bit because you got some studs that were a little bit down, right? Bobby Witt and Jose Abreu really did not live up to their potential in the first week, especially Abreu. And Ashby's gone, but Musgrove.
I'll get Musgrove. Yeah, I'll get Musgrove back.
One of your best players, right? He's probably your second best player after Witt. So Musgrove, once he's back, he should be putting up 20-point games for you on the regular. He's a great pitcher.
I'm hoping the Birds get Dakota Hudson up. I know they wanted to stretch him out, but they clearly need pitching. So if he could get up there and give me something, that would be nice. If Matt Boyd can, I think he only went 4 innings, 4 1/3 is his last start, but he's walking guys. He's throwing a lot of pitches. So if he can get stretched out and he's striking guys out. I can be mediocre. I can be scrappy.
I mean, you could roll in some dreams too, depending on when you.
I could play spoiler. I have no illusions. I don't like where my team. I tried to convince myself that I really liked it coming into the season, but the more I looked, the more I realized how vulnerable. And then when Lux went down, well before early in the spring, it showed the glaring hole that I had in my lineup, which was that lack of depth. And I've got guys that can play. I've got a bunch of guys that can play everywhere, but as soon as I move him, there's a hole somewhere else. And I just then lost Ashby and then Musgrove. So, but I'm better than the White Sox.
The White Sox. I feel for Harry a little bit. I mean, not really, but I mean, he's having trouble putting a lineup out there, but that's his own design.
True.
So I mean, there's nobody on the wire for him to pick up to fill those positions. I understand his pain there, but I mean, it's hard to say the team's going to get better or worse because almost everyone in his lineup's not actually playing.
He's somebody I could see maybe paying that the point penalty next year. If there's anybody, I think it's pretty obviously potentially the White Sox anyway. So it's not that he's trying to do that. He did comment the other day, like I'm trying to pick guys. There's just nobody out there, and we just looked tonight. There's really not anybody out there. So
I'm sure he has trades out there, but I'm sure some guys he doesn't want to give up. So he's to take the point loss, so he's going to have to give some of those guys up.
If you're in Harry's position, if you're sending offers out, the recipient of the offer kind of knows that he can maybe put the screws to you a little bit because if you're trying to avoid that point penalty, well, then Harry's obviously a little desperate to put a major league lineup out there. So, I don't know. I don't have any indication that that's what's happened to him, but in a 30-team league, I could see somebody saying, well, I'm going to need a little bit more, Harry, because throw a pick in, Harry. And then Harry maybe doesn't want to do this. It's fine. I'll just take the $10 hit and keep my pick. So it'd be interesting to see what he does or doesn't do, rather. But this was very cool, Jeff. I mentioned to you earlier when you sent it to me, if anybody used to read ESPN, the magazine, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s, I don't remember who it was, but he would do a season preview with funny little blurbs and stuff like that with the teams. But this kind of reminded me of that, these little informational bits and opinion pieces. So this was really cool.
No, I like it a lot. I think it's great. I like to see this, say just before the All-Star break, see the differences and see how those teams climbed or fell, or if they all stayed the same. I think it'd be interesting to revisit.
And there will be changes, of course, right? I was thinking as you guys were talking about just trying to play spoiler. I mean, there'll be teams that finish in the wild card roles that no one expects to. That will happen, right?
Sure, correct.
So, and that could easily be the Rockies, depending on how things break. It's way too early to give up in any league.
Yeah, it's very, very early. I think other than the White Sox, for obvious reasons.
Right.
everybody has a chance to go on some kind of run here, even if it's not a league winning run. Play spoiler, win a wild card, whatever it might be. Win some money, win some games, and get yourself. It sounds stupid to say get yourself ready for the next year, but it's like we're all kind of looking up at the Pirates right now. We're all kind of just getting ready for either him to stumble somehow or playing for the future. This is a dynasty league, so we of course have to think about the future, but the man is a juggernaut. He just is. So. Anything you guys got any closings? We've managed to keep it to an hour here.
No,
you want to get out about week one?
Happy to see you hosting these, Alan. I hope you keep them going. It's always good to see the different owners in the league and get their perspectives. And I mean, if you've had pretty much everyone on at this point, but if you haven't, hopefully
there's some guys left. There's some guys left, but we'll get them. Yeah.
I like
this. I like doing this. I Monday night. Easter was last night. I think ideally going forward, I'll probably start doing them Sunday night and recapping the week and getting different guys on and kind of doing it like this, a little more free form, where we just kind of talk about what interested us instead of just saying, this team scored the most hitting points. This team scored the second most hitting points. That got old to do for me, just to type it all up every week. It was getting really mundane and old, and this is a lot better. So I thank you guys for taking some time out of your Monday, talking some ABL.
Thank you for having me.
See you guys.
Take care, again.
Thanks a lot, guys.